Hello!
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Lighthouse Online on this Wednesday afternoon. It's great to have you all with us again. Laura, why don't you tell us what's going to be happening today?
Yes, well, we've got another fun half hour ahead, including a food partners game, a confetti challenge, a lunch and bunch craft, a song, and a Bible talk from John as we explore the 9th story now in our God Cares series. And today we'll hear about what happened when Jesus was faced with a very big crowd of over 5,000 people and they all wanted some lunch.
Wow, will Jesus be able to give them enough food to eat? More than 5,000 people, that is a lot of people to make lunch for, and I wonder what he will do. And most importantly, what's the story of a crowd, a massive crowd eating a picnic, got to do with us, and what will it tell us about Jesus?
Well, great questions indeed. We'll be finding out the answers to those and lots more later on. But first, it's time for a game. Well, today's story features 2 types of food that go together. So we're going to play a quick fire game now of food partners. Now, some foods just go hand in hand, don't they? But do you know which foods go together? I'm going to call out the first food and then you have to shout out or quickly write down the food that it goes with. I'll reveal the answers at the end. How many can you get correct? Okay, 10 seconds to quickly grab some paper and a pen. Are you ready? Okay, here's the first one. Fish and... Number 2, jelly and... Number 3, salt and... Number 4, apple crumble and... Number 5, strawberries and... Number 6, eggs and... Number 7, bangers and... Number 8, roast beef and... It's a tricky one. Roast beef and... Number 9, Big Mac and... What would you ask for in McDonald's? And the last one, number 10, hot chocolate and... Okay, hopefully you've written down 10 words, 10 different answers on your piece of paper. Okay, let's go through them. The first one was, of course, fish and chips. The second one was jelly and ice cream. So give yourself another point if you got that one right. Tick them as we go along. Number 3 was salt and pepper. Of course, salt and pepper. Number 4, bit tricky, apple crumble and custard. Apple crumble and custard go together, don't they? Number 5, so strawberries and cream. A traditional dish at Wimbledon when people watch the tennis, they like to eat strawberries and cream. Okay, number 6, with eggs, it's bacon, eggs and bacon. Number 7, with bangers, it's mash, bangers and mash, or sausages and mash. And number 8, this is probably the most tricky one, roast beef. What goes with roast beef? Yorkshire pudding. Roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. Another point. Number 9, what would you ask for McDonald's? Big Mac and fries, of course. Big Mac and fries. And the last one, hot chocolate and marshmallows. Goes perfectly together, doesn't it? Well, see how many you got right. And do let us know your score so that we can announce the winners next time. Well, in that game, we were thinking about different food pairings because in today's true story from the Bible, Jesus feeds over 5,000 people with some bread and fish. See if you can spot just how much he has of each. I think you'll be quite surprised. Listen carefully now as John tells us the story.
Hello boys and girls, welcome to the story time, and you've just interrupted me eating my quick snack of mini cheddars. I like mini cheddars. And what I've done is I've counted how many are in a packet. Have you any idea how many are in a packet? Well, there are 16. So they disappear very quickly when I'm around chomping, you know. But it made me think that actually if we were at Lighthouse in the halls as normal, we'd get around 35 boys and girls along to Lighthouse. If I was to share this packet with them, it would very quickly run out. There wouldn't be nearly enough to go round. Well, today I want to tell you a story about a seemingly impossible event that turned out to be a miracle. Now, the backdrop of the story is that Jesus was teaching people out by a big lake, and everyone was really excited to be there because they wanted to hear what he had to say. Also, he was feeling very sorry for some of the people who'd been brought there who were sick and ill, and he was healing them, and people were seeing these miracles happening. It was amazing. I wonder if you've ever been part of a very big crowd. Maybe you've been to St Mary's at the football ground, or maybe you've been to the Mayflower Theatre and seen a show. I don't know, but you know, often we get into big crowds. Well, there were lots of people on this hillside, and the sun was beginning to go down, and it was getting late in the day. And some of Jesus' friends came to him and said, you know, is there going to be any food here? Because these people have been here a long time and they're beginning to look a bit hungry. Well, there was no way they could feed everyone because actually the Bible tells us there were over 5,000 people there. Can you imagine? 5,000 people. A bit more than we get at Lighthouse on a Wednesday. That was about 35, so we need about another 4,965 people to make it up to 5,000. Well, imagine being those people out by the lake and sitting there, listening to Jesus speaking, but actually feeling your tummy rumbling and feeling quite hungry. Well, Jesus told the disciples to see if there was anybody in the crowd who had food to share. And so the disciples went through the crowd looking, and they found a little boy who had a packed lunch. And his packed lunch consisted of 2 fish. Well, I haven't got raw fish with me, so 2 tins of tuna will do. 2 fish he had, and 5 loaves of bread. That's all he had for his packed lunch, which for him would have been absolutely fine. Well, the disciples took this little boy and his packed lunch to Jesus. And the disciples said, this is all we've got. You're going to have to send the crowd away. And Jesus said, we're not going to send the crowd away. We're going to give them something to eat. In fact, he said to the disciples, you give them something to eat. Well, they found this little boy with his lunch. And so Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He stood up and he thanked God for them. A bit like when maybe you say grace sometimes before you eat. Dear Father, thank you for this food. Please bless it now to these 5,000 people. Well, you know, this was only meant for one. But absolutely amazingly, as the disciples started passing out the food, well, there was enough for everyone to eat. In fact, their tummies got so full that there was leftover food. And the disciples went round after everybody had eaten and they collected 12 baskets of leftovers because everybody had eaten to their heart's content. How did Jesus do that? It was a miracle, an amazing miracle that God made possible. Because, of course, Jesus is God. Now, you know, what does that tell us about God? Well, it tells us that he cares for us, that he cares for our physical needs. He wants to make sure that we have something to eat every day. But it also means that he cares for our spiritual needs too. And we began to see that in the story as Jesus was able to heal people. Through his care of people, he wanted to make them better. But you know, it goes deeper than that. Later on in the New Testament, Jesus says, I am the bread of life. Which really means, yes, I want to make sure that you've got enough to eat, but also I want to feed your soul. I want to feed your inner life, your heart. I want to make sure that you don't feel guilty about the life that you're leading if you've done wrong things and bad things. I want to give you forgiveness. And we know how Jesus forgave us because we know he went to the cross for us and died on that cross, paying the price for our sin. Shove off God, I'm in charge, no to your rule. We're all guilty of that. He paid that price and then he rose from the dead, and that new life, that resurrection life, is available to anyone who walks this planet, to every human being, because God loves us and cares for us so much. All we have to do is trust him and receive that bread of life, of healing, of forgiveness, of coming back to God and joining his family. What a great story. So here's some questions. First question. How many people were on that hillside that day? Get your memory banks going, vibes, brain waves. How many people were on that hillside that day? 5,000, at least 5,000, huge amount. Next question, number 2. What did the little boy have in his packed lunch? He had 2 fish and 5 loaves. That's all. Question 3. How many baskets of food were there left over after the 5,000 people had eaten their fill? 12. 12. Amazing. And here's the last question. What does that say to us about God? How does that show that God cares for us? Well, God wants to supply our daily need. He wants to make sure that we have food to eat. And not only that, though, he has created a beautiful world for us to live in. And there's plenty of food in our world for everyone to eat. It's just that maybe some of us are too greedy. Some nations, some continents are more greedy than others. And so others go without. But God wants to make sure that there's enough food for everyone. But more deeply, he wants to sort our inner life out. He wants to give us that opportunity of being able to come to him and saying, Lord, please come into my life. Forgive my past, the things I've done wrong, my badness, my brokenness. And let your life flow through me. Feed my life with your life so that I can do the things you want me to do. Be the person you want me to be. And I long to do that with you as my companion for life, going into eternity, into heaven and beyond. Because I know that you've conquered death. And that's all been made possible through Jesus, not just walking this earth and healing people, but by paying the price on the cross and rising again. That is what he offers us, we who are lost, because he cares for every human being who walks this planet. And that includes you. Great to share with you. See you soon.
Well, thanks, John, for sharing that story with us. I hope you were listening carefully and having a go at answering those questions, because it's now time for this week's challenges. Well, for our first challenge, you will need a sheet of A4 paper. Now you could draw the 2 fish and the 5 loaves of bread, a little bit like I've done here, to represent the little boy's packed lunch that we heard about in our story today. We've just heard how Jesus shared 2 fish and 5 small loaves of bread between over 5,000 people. So your challenge is to see just how many pieces you can tear your paper into. Can you get anywhere close to 5,000? Well, Paul's going to give it a go to show you. Well, we counted up all the little pieces of paper that Paul tore the paper lunch into, and he got exactly 100, believe it or not, but nowhere near to 5,000. Can you beat his score? Do let us know how many you got so that we can announce the winners next time. Well, no matter how many pieces you manage to share your paper lunch between, you will notice that the lunch actually got smaller. The more pieces that you tore it into, the smaller each piece was. Now, if this was real food instead of paper, do you think that one of these tiny pieces would be enough to fill up a very hungry person? I don't think so, do you? Look how small that piece of bread would be. Only a little bit bigger than a crumb. But with the lunch that Jesus shared, the opposite happened. And instead of getting smaller, the food actually got bigger. Over 5,000 people were full up, and there were 12 baskets full of leftovers. This was no ordinary sharing, and Jesus was no ordinary person. This story proves that Jesus must be God. And it also shows us that he cares for us by always giving us more than we need if we are trusting in him. Today, we've heard how Jesus turned a little boy's packed lunch into more than enough bread and fish to feed over 5,000 people. So we are going to make his lunch bag with the bread and fish in to help us retell today's story. For this you will need either some white paper or coloured paper or card. Coloured is best if you have it, but if not, white will be fine. And you can just colour it in or draw pictures on it using some felt tips or colouring pencils. You'll also need some tin foil if you have it. This is optional from the kitchen. Coloured pens or pencils. Some sellotape, some glue, Pritt stick is fine, scissors, and some string or some type of wool, and also, again optional, scrap paper or tissue paper or extra tin foil or just something that you can scrunch up, and it doesn't matter, to put inside one of the shapes we're going to make. So once you've gathered all your items, the first thing we're going to do is to make the little boy's lunch bag. Now you might happen, if you're lucky, to have a paper bag in the kitchen already that sometimes you use to put lunch in. If you do, use that, but if you don't, I don't have one, I'm going to show you how to make a paper bag using A4 paper and sellotape. So if you happen to have a piece of paper this size, A3 size, then that's perfect to use that. But if you only have A4, I'm going to show you, if you have white A4 paper, how to join together to make it a bigger piece. So if you use some sellotape, and sellotape all the way down the side, and then turn it over and sellotape on the other side too. So that it's extra strong. Okay, so it's ready to use. So take your now A3 size of paper and make it into a tube shape. So put both ends together, and now we're going to sellotape along there. So if you have only white paper, you could draw patterns on it or colour it in or draw some pictures. This is for the lunch bag, however you like, or you could even do that on your colour paper. Once you've made it into a tube shape, so sellotape the ends together, we're just going to slightly flatten it like this and turn up the ends, so only a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 centimeters. Turn it up and fold, and then some more sellotape and sellotape that end at the bottom of your bag. So once you've got it however you like, if you wanted to decorate it, you could also make some handles so that we can hold our lunch bag by taking a piece of paper the same colour as your bag and cutting 2 strips. So you want to make them a couple of centimetres wide. Another one. And then we're going to stick these onto our bag with some Pritt stick. So take your Pritt stick and just add a little bit of glue on one end, and then stick it onto your lunch bag there, and then you'll need to put some glue on the underside here. Stick it onto the other side. There's one handle, and now we're going to do the second handle same way. A bit more glue on the underside. Make sure you press them down. You could sellotape these on if your glue isn't working. Okay, so then you've made your lunch bag that you can carry. Now we need to draw lots of bread and fish shapes and cut them out. If you have brown paper like this, that will be perfect for the bread, but if not, you can always draw some bread rolls onto white paper and colour them in with a brown colouring pen or pencil. You can cut lots out at once to save time by folding your paper, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, and then drawing and cutting. And you could even add a few black diagonal lines or V shapes to make them more like little loaves of bread. For the fish, draw simple fish shapes onto any colour paper or card you like, or if you only have white paper, that's fine, you can use that and colour them in or add in any patterns or colours with your colouring pens or pencils. And again, cut lots out at once by folding the paper and cutting to save time. So just remember, when you're cutting out those fish shapes, as you might notice here, if you draw them like I did where it crosses over, don't cut right to the corner, otherwise the tail will break off. So I just cut around the shape to make it actually a bit bigger, so it's wider there where the tail meets. And you can even cover your fish in tin foil instead of colouring them in, or even using coloured paper to make them a little bit more shiny. You do need to make sure you've cut it out of card so it's harder, and then just take a square of tin foil and put your fish on top, and then carefully hold it in place and roughly cut around it. Doesn't matter if it's a bit bigger than your card shape, you can fold that round. Make sure it's at least the same size or a bit bigger. Cut all the way around with your scissors. And then we're going to stick it on using our Pritt stick. And then you'll need some felt tips. Permanent markers are best, like Sharpies, and you can draw some patterns on. You could even make your bread and fish shapes 3D by sellotaping 2 together around the edges, but then leaving a small gap big enough for you to get your finger in, and then scrunch up pieces of scrap paper or tissue paper or your scrap tin foil that you've cut out, any of that, and stuff inside, and when it's full you can sellotape the hole closed. So you could make a variety of tin foil and paper fish and flat shapes and 3D shapes. So when you have made as many bread and fish shapes as you want to, set aside 5 bread shapes. You might want to choose your 3D ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 2 fish. I'm going to choose these 2. And then the rest of your bread and fish shapes, you need to tape them along a length of string, equally spaced out. And you want to have it as long as possible with lots of bread and fish, looking like it's never ending. So when you have sellotaped all of your bread and fish shapes onto your piece of string, put the string into the bag, all of them in, and you are ready to tell today's story. Here we go. One boy had a packed lunch. He had 5 small loaves of bread. Put in your 5 small loaves of bread. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he had 2 fish. 1, 2. When Jesus blessed it and told his disciples to share the boy's packed lunch, it became enough to feed more than 5,000 people, and there were 12 big baskets of leftovers too. Look how many bread and fish we have here. Well, as you make this craft and use it to retell today's story, just remember that Jesus cares for you. If you're trusting in Jesus, he will give you even more than you need, just like he gave the big crowd more than enough food to eat. This miracle shows us that Jesus is God. Who else could turn a small packed lunch into a picnic for over 1,000 people? And it shows us that God cares for us. Well, if you do complete one of this week's challenges, please ask your grown-up at home to send us in your photos and messages, and you can be part of the Lighthouse Online next time. Well, today we've heard the true story of when Jesus fed more than 5,000 people with just 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And this is one of the many true stories in the Bible that shows us that Jesus must be God and that he cares for us. So it makes sense for us to sing He Must Be God together now before we go. We sang this one together at Holiday Club last summer, at the Lighthouse this year, and at the Lighthouse Online earlier on too. So you should know it by now. See if you can spot the verse that talks about the story that we've heard today, when Jesus fed a very big crowd who'd no food to eat. Don't forget to join in with the actions.
So we could show he forgives our sin. How cool is that? How cool is that? He told the man to pick up his mat. He must be God if he did that. How cool is that? The terrible storm while he was at sea. Jesus calmed it so we could say, "Put our trust in me." How cool is that? How cool is that? He spoke the word, the waves went dead flat. He must be God if he did that. How cool is that? Jesus fed a very big crowd, you know, food to eat. Jesus fed them so we could all that we need. How cool is that? How cool is that? From all the bread, we'd almost get that. He must be God if he did that. How cool is that? How cool is that? How cool is that? From all the bread, we'd almost get that. He must be God if he did that. How cool is that? How cool is that?
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this week's Lighthouse Online. Next week, we're actually having a break from the Lighthouse Online for 1 week only, but don't worry, we'll be back the week after with another true story from the Bible about how God heals a man who had very sore skin. Take care, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.